Good morning, y'all. Good morning. I got another story time for y'all. Before we get into that, I want y'all to get into my Dunkin' that I got. I got a new it's iced twisted white chocolate signature latte. I got that, and I got me some donuts. So cheers. Sorry about the lighting. That's pretty good. I also got me a chocolate glazed donut as well. The glaze is kind of hard on it. Ain't too shabby though. Okay. First of all, excuse the. I'm always saying this. Y'all know my ass is dry. You feel me? Be dry. Okay. So I'm gonna tell this a quick story time. Okay. I always say it's quick and then it don't end up being quick. But I just need to stop yapping and then get to it. Okay. Get to it. So I had a work friend. Okay. I would probably say like, I want to say this happened in maybe 2016, 2017-ish. I'm not for sure. But I had this work friend, right? And me and this work friend, I thought was pretty damn cool. I mean, literally, we would hang out with each other outside of work. So you're cool then. If you hanging out with a co-worker outside of work, you got to be cool. Okay. So we would go out together. We would go out to eat, double date sometimes. Very rarely did we double date. We probably went on a double date maybe twice. I would come over to her house for dinner. She came over to my house for dinner. Like, we was pretty cool. And at the time, the girl was getting ready to, she was getting married, So we worked night shift at this job. And at the time, it was just us two that was working on the shift, So it would be times where it'd be slow at the job and shit. And we would, go to her house and work on her wedding decorations because she was engaged and shit. So we would go to her house and work on her wedding decorations and stuff. I would help her, make her little centerpieces for the wedding. And then sometimes she would bring the supplies to the job on slow days and stuff because we still had to be at work. Even though it was nothing to do at work, So she would bring her supplies, to work, and then we would work on her wedding decorations and shit, make time go by, but like I said, we became very cool, real cool, So me and the guy that I was dating at the time, me and him broke up, and my thing was, I wasn't ready to talk about that at work, I knew that if I was to bring that up at the job, you feel me? Like, I would lose my focus on the job. And one thing you got to know about work is they going to give you a pass like one day. You're slipping, you're emotional one day, they're going to give you a pass at work. But you continue to do that, then it's going to become a problem. You feel me? So I knew once I brought up the breakup, I knew that it was going to affect me at the job. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to bring it up, about us breaking up. You feel me? And so I would probably say maybe a couple of days after me and this guy broke up, I noticed that, my friend was asking me like, how's your boyfriend doing? How are y'all doing and stuff? And I'm like, oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. And I just started to notice that she would like consistently ask me. Every shift she was asking me, how's your boyfriend doing? How's things going with you and him? And I was like, it's okay. We're doing good, It was kind of getting a little weird to me because I'm like, every shift she's asking me how me and him is doing, But I was just like, hey, we done hung out a few times, so I don't know. I just was like, maybe she's just asking just to be asking, But then I started to notice that, it would be times where we would have to come in during the day for like meetings, or we would come in for like certain things that we needed to do. We had to do it during the day at times too, Excuse me. So I would notice like when I would come in during the day and shit, coworkers would come up to me and ask me like, how are you and your boyfriend doing? How's things going with you and your boyfriend? And I'm just like, we're doing good. He's doing good or whatever. And I'm like saying to myself, like, these people don't even know my boyfriend. They didn't know my ex-boyfriend, so I'm like, that's weird that, it was like all different people coming up to me and asking me how we were doing. And I was just like, these people don't even know him. Like, why is they asking me, how we doing? But then I'm saying to myself, I said, well, maybe you just thinking about it too much. Y'all just broke up, you're still in your feelings and shit, So maybe you just thinking about it too much, I know they know of us because, at the time in my little office area, I had a picture of us hanging up, so I'm like, well, maybe they seen our picture hanging up and stuff, and they're just like, okay, how is y'all doing and stuff. And eventually that picture came down, and yet people was asking me how we were doing and shit, well, the picture didn't come down until, so the people at the job was, that didn't know him, personally, like how me and my friend, how my friend knew him. Dang, I just threw myself off talking about that because the picture shit ain't really had nothing to do with it. But so I would have to come into work during the day for meetings at times, and so I had people coming up to me and was asking me about how me and my boyfriend was doing, and they never met him before. They didn't know him, and so I'm like, why is these random people coming up to me and asking me about me and my boyfriend, and they didn't even know who he was, like they didn't know him personally or anything, but just these random people will come up, how your boyfriend doing? How's you and your boyfriend doing? I'm like, we're doing good, but I said to myself, I'm like, why is these people asking me about my boyfriend? They don't even know him. They don't know him from a can of paint. They don't know him. But I'm like, well, girl, you probably just in your feelings, you feel me? You just in your feelings. Y'all broke up. You might be thinking about it too much. You know what I mean? So fast forward, to her wedding day, I show up to the wedding and he's not with me, so when I seen her, she was like, where's your boyfriend at? Where's your boyfriend? And I'm like, oh, he had to work. He couldn't come, because I'm still not ready to talk about this, And I'm like, he couldn't come. He had to work. And she's like, oh man, that sucks, And then her husband, he comes up and he's like, where's your boyfriend at? And then, explain that to him. And then I had random people at the, wedding, random co-workers coming up to me and was like, Keiki, where's your boyfriend? I was excited to meet him. I've heard nothing but good things about him. I'm excited to meet him. And I'm just looking at them like, how are you excited to meet? Like, it's weird to me. Like, everybody at the wedding's asking me about my ex-boyfriend and stuff, and I'm just like, he had to work, and everybody's like, okay, all right, well, the dang, that's sad, I was looking forward to meeting him and stuff, So I left the wedding. I'm like, this is so weird, as I'm driving home, I'm like, this shit is so weird. Like, why is everybody asking me about my boyfriend? And the timing is just so crazy because me and him broke up, like, I'm not even thinking, I'm just like, what the heck is going on? This is just so weird, So One day I'm at home, on my day off and shit, chilling, and I get a call from one of my coworkers. And now this coworker, she was someone that would come in and just step in when we needed help, when we were short staffed. They would call her in. She was a real cool lady, real cool, really down to earth. And so excuse me, I was shocked to see her calling, because the only time that we communicate is when we're on the shift together. So when I seen her calling my phone, I was like, oh man, what didn't happen? You feel me? I'm like, what's going on? Because this is weird that this lady is calling me. What didn't happen? Did I fuck something up? Like, what's going on? So I picked up the phone. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she was like, hey, Keiki, she said, I got a question for you, and I just want you to be honest with me, And I'm like, okay, what's up? And she said, are you and your boyfriend still together? Are you and your boyfriend still dating? And I said, once she said that to me, I said, well, there's no need to lie, because it's something to this, So I said, no, we're not together. We haven't been together for probably about 2 months now. And she said, okay. She said, if I was you, I would just tell people that you and him are not together, because your friend has got everybody at the job thinking you're crazy. And I said, what? She said, yeah, your friend's got everybody at the job thinking you're crazy, because she said, your ex-boyfriend called her and told her that you and him broke up and that he would not be attending her wedding. And I said, what? He called her and told her that we're broke up, and I didn't even realize that he had the girl's number. Then I said, oh man, it was one day that my phone died and I had to call him from her phone to, let him know that my phone died, and, to come pick me up and stuff. And I'm like, so I was just like, what? She said, yeah. She said, while we was at work today, she was talking about you, while we was working and stuff. She was talking about you to a group of people. And she said that, your ex-boyfriend called her and told her that, you and him broke up, and that, he's sorry that he won't be able to attend her wedding. And she was telling them that, I think something's wrong with her, because every time that I ask her about her and her boyfriend, she's saying that me and him are still together. And even though they're not together, I think it's something going on with her. I think it's something wrong with her, because she keeps saying that they're together and they're not together. And she's like, yeah, so she's telling these people at the job that you and your boyfriend broke up, and that you won't admit that y'all broke up and stuff. And I said to myself, wow. I'm like, what? And I'm like, so when she said that, after that, I was like, okay, that's fucked up. And then just as I was getting ready to say, well, what did you say when she was saying this shit? Because you got to catch people on that type of shit too. If you sit around listening to people gossip about someone, what did you say? You feel me? That's my next question to a person. If you're going to come to me and tell me about something someone said, I want to know what you said, okay? In my defense, did you defend me, or you was just sitting there ear hustling and not saying anything? So before I could even ask her, well, what did you say? She said, yeah. She said, as she was sitting there talking and stuff, I had to stop her and say, hey, did you ever consider Keiki's feelings? Like, her and that guy was together. They broke up. Maybe she just didn't want to share it at the time. Like, breakups are hard, Maybe she just didn't want to share it with you. And she was going to give herself some time. And then she was going to eventually share it with you, Like, you as a friend, you should have been more understanding of the situation, rather than going around and telling people that this girl is crazy because she won't admit that her and her boyfriend broke up, And she said after she told her that, she got all embarrassed and, switched the conversation, But she was like, Keiki, I just wanted to call you and tell you that, like, everybody at the job knows that you and him aren't together anymore. I mean, even back when you went to the wedding, everybody at the wedding knew y'all broke up and stuff. And I said, oh, I'm like, you know what, girl? I said, now it makes sense why random people have been asking me, you know, how me and my boyfriend are doing, that literally didn't know nothing about him, never met him, you know. So I'm like, I was wondering why everybody is asking me how me and my boyfriend are doing. It's because my so-called friend was going around the job and telling people that me and him broke up, you know, which a true friend wouldn't have behaved like that. You feel me? A true friend would have listened to the conversation and probably would have told him while he was on the phone, told him, hey, that ain't my business, I'm gonna stay out of it. A real friend would have hung up the phone and called me right away and said, hey, I just got off the phone with your ex-boyfriend. He said y'all broke up and he ain't gonna come to the wedding. I'm sorry that this happened or whatever. But instead of her doing that, she took that information and then she was trying to pry it out of me. Every day she kept asking me about him and trying to pry it out of me instead of being what a good friend would have been and just said, hey, Keiki. Soon as she got off the phone with the nigga, she should have been like, hey, Keiki, I just got off the phone with your ex-boyfriend. He calling me, putting me in y'all business. Hey, I ain't got nothing to do with that. You know, but I want to let you know that he called me and told me you and him ain't together no more. And I'm sorry about that or whatever. But instead, she was trying to pry it out of me, and she was talking to people at the job and having everybody at the job thinking I'm crazy, mentally disturbed because I didn't want to tell my business at the job, you know. So the lady was just like, Keiki, I just wanted to call you and let you know that it ain't no need to lie. You know, everybody knows that you and him ain't together. And, you know, I just wanted to let you know what your supposed friend is saying about you, you know. And she was like, you know, if you don't mind, you know, hey, just keep this between me and you know, that she did, you know, that I told you, you know, because I don't want no problems at the job with the girl, you know. But she was like, I just wanted to let you know that and just let you know that I did defend you, because at the end of the day, you know, as a friend and as a woman that has dealt with divorce, you know, she was like, you know, that's, to me, that was very hurtful that she would even put your business out there when it's clear that you didn't want that to be, you didn't want to share that information right now, you know. So she was like, you know, I just want to let you know that, you know, and I'm gonna let you go because I got to get back to work. But, you know, and I was just like, all right, well, I appreciate you for reaching out to me and stuff. And I got off the phone and I was just like, wow. I said, and you thought you was crazy because every time you turn around, people was asking you about your boyfriend, but they was just trying to confirm how crazy you was, you know. I mean, like I said, random people was just coming up to me, asking me about him. And I'm like, what you asking me about my boyfriend for? You never met him. You don't know him. Like, what in the world is going on? But after that conversation, it all just made sense, you know. So it's funny, you know, after I found that out, now I'm trying to think to myself, I'm like, now I'm fucking pissed at this bitch. You know, I don't want to even be around her. I don't want to have nothing to do with her at this point. But we worked together, and at the time we was working, it was just two of us working in the office, just us two. So it was like I couldn't avoid not talking to her and things like that. But it's funny because we actually had somebody else get hired, and we had so now it's three of us working on the shift, and it just so happened the person that they hired, she didn't really care for them. So the whole time, you know, they're like bickering back and forth, her and this guy. I mean, they would just, you know, go tit for tat the whole night, and it was just so frustrating. But it also made it to where me and her didn't really communicate with each other because she was more focused on trying to, you know, go back and forth with this guy, you know. And then eventually, you know, I switched to a different shift just for like staffing issues and stuff. They had me switch from you know, my first shift, my night shift, and then I went to like second shift or something. And so and then like shortly after I, you know, went to that shift, she ended up getting fired. But once I moved, I think once I was on once I moved to the other shift, she was probably working there for like another month or two, and then she ended up getting fired from the job. But I mean, after I moved from that shift, I cut off all communication with that girl. I cut it all off, you know, blocked her and everything. So yeah, so you know, that's how that story went. You know, hopefully it's understandable, because I kind of messed up, and I don't think I'm gonna cut that part out. Okay, I ain't gonna cut that part out at all. But yeah, you know, like I've said before, just from my other story time that I shared too about my boss, you know, your coworkers ain't your friends. Like, it's just it is what it is. It's very rare that you get a good friend at work. You find a good friend. It can happen. You know, I done met cool people at work, but at the end of the day, your coworkers ain't your friends. You got to put people in like certain categories. You feel me? It just is what it is. If you want to admit it to yourself or not, hey, that's on you, you know. But I've just had, you know, back-to-back issues with coworkers that I thought was my friends. You know, the only coworker that I've met in my life that I would say that was cool to the end was my friend Renee, you know, who I consider her a big sister. She became family, you know. But you know, it's just coworkers ain't your friends, man. And that really had my ass feeling real down when I got that call from her. And I'm like, damn, you know, everybody and their mama walking around this shop asking me about my you know, boyfriend. And I'm like, girl, bitch, it's just in your mind. You know, you going through something right now. You know, you broke up with someone, but you know, I'm just like chalking it up to everything else, you know. But then a real one called me and said, hey girl, you know, just to let you know, this so-called friend of yours ain't no friend, you know. So it is what it is, though, you know. It is what it is. But like I say, your coworkers, they ain't your friends, man. And to this day, that girl don't even know that I know what she did. Shout out to the girl that called me, though, for real, because I sure was gonna continue to walk around there till I felt ready, you know. And another thing too is, when I got back to work, I had people still coming up to me after I found out what happened. You know, people coming up to me, how's your boyfriend doing? And I just walk off from their ass like, bitch, you know that me and my boyfriend ain't together. Me and my ex-boyfriend ain't together. I just walk off mid conversation. They come up and saying, you know, how's your boyfriend? I just walk off on their ass like, y'all ass know that me and him ain't together. We ain't together anymore, you know. But that's the end of the story time. Y'all be careful out there, you know. Be careful with these folks. And I'm about to get up out of here, you know. On to the next story time, okay? On to the next story time. I'm gonna holler at y'all though. Peace out.